It's been 2.5 years since I won't say stopped Masa, since we stopped conducting events. It was the beginning of the lockdown, and all of us have had our share of the 2.5 years of lockdown experience, webinars to everything else that followed since. Most of the crowd here would be probably attending a Masa event for the first time, except for the people in the first 2 or 3 rows. So this is a small presentation for that crowd. Yeah. A small 10-minute recap of what this story is all about. Masa stands for Malnad Architecture Students Association. We were a college in Hassan which lasted from 1980 to 2000, 21 batches, all put together, and for reasons best known to the management, the college closed in 2000 exactly. So the first batch was in 1980, the last batch was in 2000. The last batch which passed out of the college was 2005. And sometime around 2006, 2007 was this time when we realized that we don't have a place to call home, because there is no department in the college, and we are a limited edition in that sense. 535 or 540 students passed out in 20 batches, biggest batch not being more than 28 or 29 in a batch. And that started this kind of hunger to connect or to keep the momentum going to, if not a physical entity or a school, at least as a virtual entity which we all belong to. At least somewhere out there we belong to something. And to start that, we went on this hunting spree to figure out where are these 550 students who passed out of this college. So this first event which happened was a way of collecting information of where these people who passed out from this college, where did they finally land up at. And then there was this hunt to find addresses and email IDs and contact numbers, and this was a poster done out of all the email IDs of all the 550 of them. So, sorry, where did it go? Next. Yeah. Fair enough. Sorry. So that information that was collected over a period of 6 months to 7 months was made into a book. And this book went to all the 550 graduates, wherever they are, whichever part of the world they were in. And information was shared, people reconnected, people kind of found lost friends. And that was the first initiative to start this entire story of what this school was all about, which then led to the next year, where we made a book again on what these people were doing. So this led to a page each on whoever wanted to contribute for the book. And there were quite a few entries, at least 100 plus entries. And this became a book of what these graduates from the school ended up doing subsequently in their lives. So that was this, which led to the first event which happened in a place called Guhantara in 2000, whatever, I forget the date now, which was the first event which didn't have too many speakers from the outside. We had just two speakers whom we managed to cajole to come and present. One was Professor Christopher Benninger, and the other was an architect from Sri Lanka called Hiranti Velandave, and the rest were all of us, all the alumni who were presenting at this event. Even then, there was still no sense of what would this eventually become. I mean, where would this actually go to from there on? This was just a way of connecting. Okay, we connected. We collected some information. We got information about everybody. What next? Where do we move from here on? And after having done the first event, we realized that to set the momentum, one had to keep that pace on. Otherwise, this momentum would be lost. So we started with what was called as this monthly event. So every month, like what we're meeting now, we started doing events with one speaker, one event, and no sponsors. The idea was that there would be no sponsorship for these events. All these events would be free. And the target audience would be students like yourself and interns working in offices, basically. And this would be a platform where you would get to see, ideally, work from people who are practicing in Bangalore. It was also a showcase for young practitioners to present their work. That is how it started, saying that give them a platform where if they're not getting published or if they're not able to share their work with the peers or other people in the industry, this would be a platform for them to share their work. So it started with something like that. So most of the early practices or the early presentations were from people mostly in and around Bangalore, and some here and there where we could manage to get them from within the country or mostly South India or little beyond South India. So this monthly events would then terminate into what was called as an annual event. And the annual event would then have speakers who would be brought from other parts of the country, and that would be a day-long event. So the first one was when we all met, the second one was this. And then a series of monthly events with speakers, mostly from, like I said, within the country. And as events went by, people from Ahmedabad, Delhi, Bombay, I mean, wherever you would find somebody interesting or somebody doing interesting work would be called, and nobody so far has refused, saying that people would change dates at the most, saying that not this month, next month, but nobody point blank ever said that, I'm sorry, I will not be able to do this. So that led to a series of annual events, and so the format kind of got set. You had events which happened every month, and you had one at the end of the year, September, October mostly, where you would bring in speakers from around the globe. Slowly we became a little more adventurous, saying that, okay, now that we have done this events within the country with speakers mostly from the country, now can we start hunting for speakers globally? And the idea was to then start getting speakers from anywhere around the world for the annual event at least, so that you would get the best for the rest, that is for the rest of us. So, which led to getting people from mostly Southeast Asia, because the context there was to find people who are working in similar circumstances, facing similar challenges, having the same weather conditions, if you would call it that, and something which would then inspire for the rest of us to look at that work and probably see inspiration or see stuff in that work which would then hopefully inspire our own practices. So this happened continuously for some of the speakers that we have brought were probably introduced to India for the first time. For example, I remember Peter Rich when he, and the most interesting part of finding speakers from abroad, it sounds silly if you look at it now. One would pick these names out of the internet or from wherever it is and just give a cold call. Just write a mail blank to the office saying that we are an association, we are doing this, and would you mind coming and presenting? And you won't believe it, most of the speakers have come like that. Nobody has asked for references, nobody has asked for, do you know somebody who knows somebody? Most of them have come on cold calls, purely randomly picked out of the net, hunted, checked out the kind of work, and then people have come. For example, Peter Rich, when he first came to Masa, he was visiting India for the first time, and he's not gone back home since. He's still here. So people from Spain, from mostly the Middle East, Beirut, Jordan, Amman, like I said, countries and practices which have similar challenges like ours, where you work with sometimes tight budgets, you work with constraints of programs, you work with constraints of land, and situations which then force you to make this very difficult decisions, which then at the same time produce this amazingly creative work. Must thank an intern and subsequently an architect who's now running his own practice, a guy called Aziz, who's to help doing this wonderful posters and handouts at every year, and people would treasure these handouts which would go out every year. So we did a last event on August of 2019, Mono Dr. Pingle from Auroville, and after that, one of the biggest events which happened during that period was Sana, one of the Pritzker Prize awardees, I think the only Pritzker Prize awardee who has presented in Bangalore. Francis D.K. Ching, all of you know from your college days. Form, Space and Order is a book I don't think anybody's ever forgotten. He was somebody we had to pursue quite a bit. It almost took 3-4 years of continuous writing letters to him when he finally agreed to come, and it was a wonderful trip when he finally landed up. This was the last annual event, 2018, and then monthly events which followed after that. The last one being Mono Dr. Pingle. So now, post-COVID and post-Netflix and the rest of it, we would also like to call it end of season 1. So season 1 closes with, like I said, 11 annual events, 90 monthly events, and featuring about 135 speakers from around the world. This is the beginning of season 2. So let's hope for the next 100 events, unlike Netflix, which stops at 10. Our seasons are in multiples of 100. So let's see this season running its course of 100 events. Thank you. I'll hand it over to Pramod, who will now introduce our speaker of the day, Sanjay Mohe. I don't need to introduce him, but I'll ask him to introduce him anyway. All of you know him. All of you are sitting here because of him. For us, he holds a special place, which is the reason why we wanted to start season 2 with him. It couldn't have been anybody else. I mean, he's been there through all these annual events that we've seen so far. He wouldn't miss even one. In fact, we used to change dates to see whether his availability is there around that time and then fix dates. Because he would never miss an annual event. Pramod.
Well, he needs no introduction. As Prashant sir said, everyone who's anyone in the profession knows architect Sanjay Mohe. He's an inspiration to a lot of us. When they gave me this, I was like, only this much? There's a lot actually should have been filled on either side and then some. But it is a brief introduction. He's a graduate of Sir J.J. College of Architecture, and he's also the founding partner of Mindspace. He's been with Mindspace for 17 years now, and he's also worked as a principal at CNT before that for 21 years. He's also had a brief stint with Charles Correa, and he's also worked very briefly in the Gulf. His projects, it's a wide spectrum of projects, research laboratories, knowledge parks, campus, beach resorts, libraries, corporate offices, hospices. The list goes on. Some of the awards that is won, the JK Cement Great Master Award 2019, the Golden Architect Award, A+D and Spectrum Foundation Architecture Award 2009, JK Cement's Architect of the Year Award 1991, 1999, and 2001, 2004, 2007, 2008, and 13. So that should give you an idea of the kind of quality of work that he's been producing over the years. The award of the Journal of the Indian Institute of Architects 2002, AR+D International Annual Award of Architecture Review 1999, London and D-Line for JRD Digital Library, Bangalore, gold medal for ARCA SIA Arc Asia, the Asian Forum for Architects of Architecture in 1998. I request Mr. Mohe to please come and share a few words with us.
Thank you so much for this elaborate introduction. Masa has always been special, and we have a long, long relationship. Navnath is sitting here, and that's where we started going to Malnad College, along with Kanade brothers, Padalkar, and then the base group was formed because of that, and I'm ever grateful to Masa because of that. We got into the base group, and so much learning happened during that time. Prem is also there now, part of the base group. So when Prashant last 2-3 years, we are not conducting this, so I used to be always after him to start it. And finally, last about a month back, he said yes. And then he caught me only to. So and because of that, I couldn't say no to him. So you would have seen my work so many times, but still I am here. You just. So whether it is base group or Masa, they taught us to think big. And every discussion would sort of move to something larger. And we would always get inspired by that. And this painting always sort of, this by William Blake's painting of measuring immeasurable. And this is something which Louis Kahn talks about all the time, about the difference between a measurable and immeasurable. And this is something going beyond the normal thing and, doing something much greater. Now, this is Dr. Salk, and you all know about Salk Institute. But I came across this write-up which he had written, what he gave to Louis Kahn. And this is really sort of amazing write-up. It says desirability of making a place not only for the scientist, but a place where I would like to invite Picasso. To have presence of unmeasurable, which is a realm of an artist. This is a language of a god. Science finds what is already there, but artist makes which is not there. Now this is quite amazing, and after this, Kahn does this, which all of us know about. And all of us have got inspired by this work. Now something similar I saw when this is Tata Management Center in Pune. We had gone there to see a memorial. Before we did Anji Reddy Memorial, we went and saw J.R.D. Tata's. It's not a memorial, but it's a collection of his belongings and all. And there is a huge archive where all the letters written right from Jamshedji Tata and all, it's all preserved there. And there was this photograph, and there's a person who was taking us around. He told a story about it. He says, when Jamshedji Tata, he saw iron ore being transported from India to London, to England. He says, if they take away grains, we can grow them back. But if they take iron ore, we lose it forever. So we have to do something to process it here. So the whole idea of putting steel plant came with the idea of doing something for the nation. It was not for making money, it was not for making steel, but it was, it was a larger idea to keep steel within the country and then make something valuable out of it. So when we were doing Titan corporate office, this is again connection with the Tata. They gave this list of requirements, but one of the things is about create elevating experience to inspire, to engage, and to excite the mind. And then to Titan strength of design, edge, innovation, core values, ethics, trust to be reflected. Now, this is immeasurable. Now, how do your client gives you areas, they give us requirements, we make bubble diagrams and create something. But when somebody says create elevating experience, how do you start? And that's where that first picture of something to create immeasurable, that becomes important. So how do you really create that experience? This is in Madurai. This is a small street. And if you stretch your hands, you can actually touch both ends of that street. It's that small. But within that street, you see these huge columns. This is some structure which was incomplete and left that way. And the moment you see that, you get transported into a different world altogether. You forget about that 6 feet wide street. It's almost like, I always wonder when you hear great music, it really transports you to, sometimes it makes you cry. And I always wonder, can architecture do that? The smell can do it. When I smell these bakul flowers, it takes me to my Goa ancestral place. In a moment, just like that. And you wonder, can architecture do that trick? And this was one example which you just see that, and it just transported me into this Luxor, which I had visited almost like some 25 years back. And it makes you think large, so it is possible. This is playing with the scale, but I'm sure there are so many different ways one can, create that connection with immeasurable. So, as always, Khan told, you start with measurable and immeasurable and go to measurable. So you start with a doodle, you start dreaming, you start sketching, and then you start throwing sketches one after, and finally it goes to something measurable of working drawing and visualization. But that gap between the two, I think that's a very critical time which all of us face. And that's where a lot of compromises happen. That's the time we tend to give up great ideas. And that's where a lot of forces come in to make that immeasurable idea into measurable. There's a constraint of cost, there's a constraint of structure, there's so many parameters. And how do you really overcome that and then create something without compromising? And that's where the whole struggle lies in. And how do you really, without giving away, how do you really sort of sustain that energy? That's important. Now, these two are my favorite artists. One is Gaitonde and another one is Samir Mandal. Gaitonde's work is more about abstraction. It's about dreaming. It's about going beyond that. The physicality of it. And in Samir Mandal's work, it anchors the abstraction. So you start anchoring abstraction you sort of start grounding it. And that's the process which all of us go through from. And this is just one example of, this is again Titan, but how the doodles, turns into something different, then it goes a little further. Then you get into slightly more details, further details, and then rendered image, and then the actual one. So this is a process which it looks quite simple when we start putting it across, and it looks quite fun. I mean, it looks like a lot of fun. But between every two stages, there's a lot of work. There is a lot of struggle. There is a lot of fight between clients, fight between structural designer, between, it's not a fight, but it's working together and trying to achieve that. So this entire process, and it doesn't happen only, this is just a symbolic thing of showing us in terms of aesthetics. It happens at every level. You work in plan, and you go through this struggle. In the case of every detail, you go through this struggle. So this goes on in every parameter, every level you are going through from, that abstraction to the reality, and then trying to come as close to that, what you are dreaming about. And to do that, this is what happens when you really start coming closer to doing so-called working drawings. So you have this principal idea, which you don't want to compromise on, and you want to stick to it. But your ability to see through that and see these different layers, I think that makes the whole process different. So you have this, and to understand the gravity, you have to understand the structure, you have to understand materiality, you have to understand technology, incorporating all services, statutory rules, economics, etc., etc. There are so many more layers. So when you draw that initial sketch and you fall in love with it and you don't want to compromise on it, you have to still remember that there will be a fire tender which has to enter the premises, and if you don't make a place for it, your sketch will get rejected, even if you work on it till the end. So to be aware of all these aspects and working it and coming back with something powerful is what we all struggle to achieve. Whether we achieve or not is a different thing, but at least we dream about it. So it's not about the form. You look at the forces behind, you look at the structure behind. It's again not about the form. You see the services running through, you see the veins going through, and so that's what you really want to look through, while processing it. Now, this is, there's one Glenn Murcutt's, he talks about, he spends few months in one of these Greek villages, and he sees these white walls painted, the joints on the floor painted white, the tree trunks painted white. And then he writes this nice statement, and he says, there are many lessons, such as a sheer integration of the material like slaked lime. It reflects the heat and light. It is a waterproofing agent. It is a disinfectant in the joints between the paving stones and house and the streets. It allows continuity of all forms, and it's a local product. When it is painted on the tree trunk, it prevents attacks by borers and microbes and deters donkeys from eating bark and barking the trees. Seeing all these taught me that you can really understand, use materials comprehensively. This is a beautiful way of analyzing the material, how one slaked lime can do so many things simultaneously, and I think that's the way to really exploit the material. That's the way to use material. And this is Peter Zumthor's bath, the way he uses stone. But the similar stone, we see it in Karnataka. And during even, Hassan college days and all, we had visited some of these, so many of these places, where when you use this stone on the wall, you see the side of the stone, it looks like this. The same stone which is used on the floor, you see top of the stone, so it looks like that. And when you use it on the roof, you see overlapped stone, so it looks like that. So the same stone, same material, and then you add kind of an ornamentation to it and you turn it around, or you use it as a chapdi kind of a thing and make jolly out of it. So same material, same stone, the way Glenn Murcutt talks about it, actually, in a traditional village, in Shahabad and Kadapa and all those areas, you would be able to see the same thing. During my college days, this was quite a memorable kind of a detail which I had seen. I was waiting on a bus stop, waiting for a bus, and there was one gutter flowing around. It was a rainy season, so water was flowing through. And this guy had put these typical charpais across this gutter. And then he had put this one tarpaulin sheet across by bending two bamboos. And then the bus stop was right in front of it. So he had a privacy with his family. His wife was washing utensils. The water was falling down, getting into this gutter. And he had not occupied any usable space. It was a waste thing. And, it was a win-win situation. The people standing on the bus stop were not disturbed. He had his privacy and all the services, everything. And it was giving that proper cross-ventilation. So, you start wondering, you can actually build series of these kind of houses across this entire thing. And then you turn the probably gutter around and create a nice neighborhood. So this was quite the idea of using a modularity of a product, using a standard product and something, creating unique out of it. So this used to be a very popular bed. Now this young generation would not have seen it, but all dhabas used to have this. And this is called a typical Indian bed because you get breeze coming from underneath as well. So it's probably for the tropical climate, hot, dry climate, this is the best, or hot, humid as well. This is the best bed. And the same thing what we saw in, when we went to, where is it, Indonesia. So this was, when there was this structure which was elevated, and you had this floor which was with the gaps, so you would get reflected light coming from it, air coming from it, and it was exactly like this bed which was actually sort of done on a larger scale. So tackling climate, tackling the flooding situation which would happen, keeping yourself safe, and then wonderful quality of light inside, ventilation, everything. This picture used to be in CNT reception. I don't know, Prem, whether it is still there. Oh. And we literally grew up looking at this picture. And it says, how architecture deals with nature. Any other object, any other sculpture or painting, you can keep it in a museum and preserve it. But when it comes to architecture, you have to put it across. You have to put it in front of nature and allow it to age. It has to face nature. It has to, whatever the weather conditions. And that's the beauty of architecture, because it has to age gracefully and still look young all the time. And this was done in 1936, and it's still as fresh as ever. And that ability to age is something which is dealing with nature, is something which we have to sort of learn to do. Now, this is in Maheshwar, where I had been almost about 2-3 years back. And when you walk along this kind of a ghat, you see these platforms there. And then Kuke sent me this picture about 3 or 4 months back when he was there. This is what I had taken about maybe some 2-3 years back. This is what he sent it, same place, and the way the water had taken over. And this is how one has to know how architecture has to deal with nature, to be able to absorb and still do something wonderful. And this is what we have to learn, I think. And that idea of dealing with water, this is Jeffrey Bawa's, the resort. And here, the water level and the floor level is almost same. And at least for me, it took me so many years to realize the importance of elevating that water level, how important that water level is. If it goes down by 6 inches, it looks totally different. Now, this is Karunashraya, which we had done long back. Actually, Medappa worked on it. But, and Medappa has done a wonderful extension to it recently. But just this picture was taken by Claire some time back. But just when the water level lifts up by 6 inches, it makes a difference. And then you start realizing how important it is to deal with it. So this is one of the houses in Hyderabad where the water level goes below these platforms. But we did this another one where the floor level and water level is almost same. And it has a different quality altogether. So I'm going to show this house. So this house is, people worked on this is Yatindra and Meera. Interiors were done by Kanan and Kanan Modi, and our Kanan Bangalore has done landscape. So this is next to this memorial what we had done. Actually, this is a house which was there behind that. And this memorial, I'll just, most of you might have seen this, but at least seen some videos on this. But this is where the relics, the ashes are kept. And this is next to the research lab. So there is a path here. Quickly, I'll tell you, there's a bike here which he used to use. There's one of his first Mercedes car which is on the other side. So that becomes access. It's a whole process of unfolding. So you go through it, you get the glimpses of it, and then you see this. And there was, this is the path which, this is Dr. Anchi Reddy. He used to sit here which in the research lab. And whenever any Nobel laureate and all would come, he would take them for the lunch to his farmhouse, which is behind this, which is what I'm going to show. So this is the path which actually represents his life struggle, because he came up from a very small village and all, and finally created this entire empire. So the paving starts with very rough stones, then it becomes semi-polished, then it becomes polished, and then he becomes very philanthropic, started giving away things. Then it becomes nature, and then it sort of ends into one Bodhi tree, which again he used to talk about that Bodhi tree with every visitor. So Avinash has worked on it. He's sitting here somewhere. So this is what you get a glimpse of it, that gap. Just quickly go through. So this is the path that you see, and you see that variation from rough to semi-rough to smooth to the grass and the tree at the end. So that is the bike and the path that he used to take when he was young. That's the water going across. This is that car, which is one of the first cars. So it's sort of when the young scientists walk on this path, they know that both the ends, what you can do with your life. And so it's about showing, starting small, taking people along, and then finally this becomes part of these trees, and it becomes part of nature, and then connects with the stars around. That's a void, maybe a smaller scale compared to what happens in ground zero. But you don't see the base of it, and his philanthropic thing that it gives away, that the water flows out of it. Your eye level comes lower, so you just see the sheet of water. That's about giving. That's the path. That's the tree, and this is where. This is the farmhouse, which is just behind that. So, lose connection. I can talk probably. So this was an interesting project, that there was an old house there, and they wanted us to demolish it and redo the whole thing. So there were a lot of trees around, and we had to really. It's a very, very large place. So okay, I can't show it. So there is one way where you can enter from the memorial site, but there is an independent driveway which comes from the other side. So it's a very, very long driveway, and it ends into that house. But they wanted to use it as a second house. It's more like a farmhouse, only 2 bedrooms, where Mrs. Sanjay Reddy would stay there and it would be used more as a weekend kind of a place. So that's the memorial. That's what I showed you was that's the path which would come, and So this is how the front area looks like. And there was this cluster of trees which we were trying to, as you see, there is one very nice kind of dried tree which was almost sculptural. So you have this one large open area here, another large area here. So you drive through this, come into that area, and eventually one can walk to that memorial place. So this was one strong focal point. There were some apartments here, slightly taller structure. So we wanted our entire house to sort of focus towards that to maintain the privacy. So that's how you come in from, that's from the memorial side. So this is how the house sits in, just series of parallel walls. Now, all these years we have been always doing houses with multiple levels for some reason. Unless you have few steps in the house, we never felt comfortable. But this house, there was a requirement right from the beginning that it has to be at one level. So, and then no double heights, no triple heights, so that was one more challenge. So we were trying to bring in nature into the house. So, and it had to be air conditioned because Hyderabad 40 degrees in the summer. And so, so it had to be enclosed. We couldn't create internal courtyards, but we created these layers through which the water can come in, nature can come in, and then that itself would create those play of light and shade. So actually we wanted that dried tree to become like a sculpture. So that became a spot, but eventually that tree sort of fell down and we had to change that. So this is how the structure looks like. So you walk from there, that's that Bodhi tree. So these were series of sketches earlier. We wanted to get glimpses of, there was a debate about whether we should use the same stone here or do something different. So series of slanting walls to basically to shade the western sun from coming in and bring into it. And then you still get glimpses of it, where the water, when you sit with a book on a chair or on a bean bag somewhere here, and you'd see that water coming in, and you'll get a privacy. So what you see, this gap here, that water coming in is just behind that. The entry sequence, the focal point as a pavilion, so this is how you would enter. There's this powder room which comes next to the reception, so we wanted to create something, some fun with the light. So that's where we tried to use stone and exposed concrete. These are those cluster of trees where your vision sort of automatically moves. So this was that. Then the way you would take water through these gaps. Again, this wall goes up to shade the western sun coming into this living room. And then this was a sculpture which Mr. Reddy had, so we just moved it here. Trying to play with the light, trying to reflect light off certain planes, getting filtered light into it. So we're trying to sort of create these gaps in the ceiling which would come down as a slit on the wall. And again, as a focal point, you see that one slanting gap happening. So you have this series of focal points which are happening from one end to another, and I think we could only play with those because there was no volume to play with, which was the language with which we were more comfortable with. So we had tried a lot of options here. Eventually, this is what happened. Some filtered light coming through. We wanted to see glimpses of the sculpture. So some of the openings and a reflected light happens at a lower level. The entrance, the other axis, just that black silky finish, stone with 3 different finishes, and then the similar stone which is used in the memorial but with a different texture. and using few wooden things. And so basically it was like a series of layers, creating different quality of light, and trapping nature within the space. So that was, so Kannan did this landscape, it's very nice. And there's a swimming pool. Earlier one had some abstract shape, which we made it more simpler. Now this is a second project, which is I am Bangalore, but it's a new campus. And I was given some 100 acres of land. And since we were working on this Bangalore campus, they asked us to do one small management development center without affecting the larger thing, because eventually they had a kind of a competition. There was different process of shortlisting big architects and all that. So that's a different story. So we started working on this campus, which is, as you see, 70 acres towards on one side, 30 acres towards the other side. This is how the site look like. Very steep slope, sometimes going almost up to. Just 1 second. Sorry. You can hear, no? Clear. Sorry. It's okay? Yeah, so so site has this amazing slope, and actually me and Medappa were in Mizoram about 1.5 months back, and every site is a sloping site there. So we went with our usual presentation. They wanted to see how to build on the slope, because that was the only problem they were facing. And every site was like, if you enter at a place, you have at least 3 floors below that. You know? So this presentation we had not taken there, but if you just compare a flat site against the sloping site has this tremendous advantage of lifting your eye level, so you can get a view right up to the horizon. You have access to the terrace of the lower person, so that's a huge advantage. And then you have access to the ground. So even if you are building, say, 3 floors, 4 floors, 5 floors, each floor is like a ground level. So you have access to. So in case of fire escape staircase, you really don't need it, because you can access ground from every level. So there are tremendous advantages, though there are a lot of disadvantages in terms of dealing with the waterproofing and how to building retaining walls, etc., etc. But it's a great fun. So these are some of these examples of building on the slope, where traditionally people have exploited this in a very different way. I just want to show these 2 different types which we have dealt with. One is you have a sloping site, but you sort of sit lightly onto it. Keep it more transparent at a lower level. Don't touch the ground, and have some minimal connections. And the second level is you firmly sit on the ground, anchor it to the base, and then make use of the ground as much as possible. So we have done both these things. So I'll just quickly go through it. Just to connect, Jeffrey Baba's Kandalama is more like this. It doesn't touch the hill. It sits very lightly on the ground. So in this project, there were a lot of these rocks, and Hyderabad. So this I would have shown it many times, but this was a sketch which I had done on the back of a greeting card, and then did this section coming back in the office, and then added all these levels and all, and it all fitted in pretty well. And this is how the plan sort of worked. And this is how the building looked like with water bodies, the bridges, the rocks, what you see, and then the way the trees grew within a matter of some 4 or 5 years, and the rocks which looked so barren initially is all full of trees now. And you have these connections where from your room you can go across and get onto this rocks. This was another site in Kerala, one of the most wonderful sites. And this is from the top. And we started working on these kind of villas come apartments. And these were the sections. And each section sort of deals with the way the slope of the site changes. So when it becomes shallower, the section responds in a different way. When it becomes steeper, it responds in a different way. And then there are some apartments further on the top exploiting the view of the water. And this is how actually the work started, the foundation started, and I think this was some 10, 12 years back. There was a heavy flood near Cochin, and the water went up by almost about 10 feet. So all these trees, what you see in that initial photograph, you could see only the top of the trees. And the entire market kind of collapsed, which any building next to water, nobody wanted to buy. And then we waited, we changed the whole scheme to sort of elevated it, but it never took off. But I'm very attached to this project. I just love it, the way these sections work. So these are those typical sections which sort of sit closer to the ground. This is how it looked like looking from the water. This is how it looked from the top. So it looked just like two-storied building, but as you went down, it sort of became much more deeper. And then you have a lot of connections walking through, responding to the site conditions, and some bridges, etc., which takes you to the clubhouse. This is the view that you would get from almost every unit. Some of them had small swimming pool attached to it and all. And quickly, one more project, which is in Pune, which is called Madhuban. Again, sitting very close to the ground. This is the ground level that you see, the lower unit and the upper unit with a car parking in between. And this space in between, at the narrowest, it is probably about 10 feet, which becomes quite huge in the middle and incorporates even a swimming pool in the middle. So that middle part kind of varies, and the lower unit and upper units are totally different. The lower unit kind of, hugs the ground, sits very closely. But the idea is eventually once, after a few years, this is of course a old shot, everything should look like a hill again, and then it should go back to the way the site was. I get very disturbed what is happening in Bangalore and all now. You see these huge towers sitting on these rolling terrains of sloping hills, and you feel that some alien ship landed somewhere onto it. So if you can build something close to the way what we saw those Greek villages, or what we saw even in Mizoram, eventually it still looks like a hill. It's not like some alien structure, stuck on. So this is what the idea was, and this is the house. So if you enter at the highest level and keep going down, using different. So from every level you have access to the ground. So you get a small patch of garden at every level wherever you are. So these were the studies, these were references for us while doing it. So this is that 77 acres and 33 acres. We wanted to place this in such a way that it doesn't affect the master plan in future, yet it has access from the road. And if you look at the site section, I don't know, it's not very clear probably, but if you see the section, that's the slope, and that's the water below. And what we are building is one tiny thing here, and that's the road on the top. So this is where the main campus is going to come, and there's some architects who are already working on it. So so these were the first sketches. How would you sort of respond to it? This is a typical situation where you put these three. This management center is somewhere where you. It's almost like a hotel with a classrooms attached to it. So you stay there for varies from 1 week to 3 weeks, and you study in the classroom, and then go back and the discussion continue to happen over the dinner, over the lunch, and things like that. So most of these CEOs of the companies, they enroll themselves to in this program. So this is a typical section which created this variation. So if you just move that that same section and trap some space in between, and separate the ground and then connect it with this, you allow the light to come in, and then you start creating interesting spaces, and then you start deleting certain rooms, and then you create extra volumes. So as an idea, as a basic format, it's a very, very simple format, but the moment you start playing with it, you can get amazing spaces. So based on that, we worked on it. So this is the lowest level. Whenever you have to deal with lift and all, it has to go back, so you end up excavating a little more. But otherwise, you are almost sort of, cutting half, filling half kind of situation. As you go up, I think I missed out the team who worked on it. Arun, Uday, then Dhanush, and these are the people who sort of worked on it. So these are the different levels till you come to the road level, and these are the upper levels, and these are the sections. And actually, in Mindspace, we love doing these kind of sections, and we keep sort of rendering them and keep enjoying them. So if you just look at these sections, you would see that variation happening, what I was explaining. It's a simple, basic module, but it keeps getting variations as you sort of, and then you work with the staircase, which is, so from one end to another, but you have to position the units in such a way that you have access to the corridors within that length, and then you have access to the terrace. And the lowest level is a dining and classrooms, administration, etc. And in other direction, again, a similar thing happens. This is how overall it sort of sits onto the ground. This is where you come in. It looks like almost ground storied or ground plus one storied structure from the road level. But when you come in, you get this amazing view. The Banerghatta Park is just behind this hill. So you just, only disadvantage is it is facing western side, but you get this amazing view, and you see the sunset as well. So you have this grand staircase which takes you down almost to the lowest level. All exposed concrete, lot of detailing. Arun has spent a lot of time mastering this technique of using he knows every bolt, where to put it, how to hold it. And then you get, you can make out the section, the way it sort of goes in, the quality of light. These are the different, so these become wind tunnels, which I learned from Korea's Kolam Beach Resort when we did extension to that. And you get amazing breeze when you create these small gaps, not just the light but the breeze as well. And this is how every room looks like. It is still happening. And that's Arun standing there, admiring his work. The staircase going all the way down, and from the upper level looking out onto the road at the entrance. So different walls. These are not yet furnished. So this is going to be a games area. The TT billiards room, etc. Then yeah, some areas become a library space. And we are pretty happy with the kind of light you get in, especially at the lowest level, because then you get different qualities of light and you feel the breeze coming into it. These shutters, similar to what we have done in Bangalore, this could be opened up to open up the classrooms, which you get a view of the valley as well. This is the lowest point, and looking back at that staircase which takes you, there are internal staircases as well, what you saw earlier. This is the open staircase. The left is the dining hall, and you get this series of exposed concrete kind of thing. Tada window has always been an inspiration, so don't tell me we have copied it from there, but just admire right now. So looking back from the valley, okay, this is the last project, but I might take a little longer because it's slightly larger project. So this is Azim Premji Foundation, which is in Bhopal. Now this is one of the very large projects we worked on. This is about 50 acres, and if there are some students here, then a lot of them for thesis they want to 50 acres of site and all. Anything less they don't feel comfortable. But when after so many years of work, when we started working on 50 acres, we got really scared because it's so I'll just about the team. Suri is a partner who is expert in coordinating things. So like what I was talking about, looking through the project and trying to understand how the services fit in, how the problems could occur. I mean, he has this ability to see through that. So he's the one who would coordinate all the services. Shweta is a real master of the whole project. She is the one who is really, fully on it. Lakshmikant and Venkatesh, both of them. Lakshmi doing the administration block, academic block. Venki doing hostel. Others doing all estimation, and Nitesh is helping all of them. So this is the team. So we started looking at Bhopal as a city and how it grew. So it started as a very small thing, and there is this Chota Talab, Bada Talab and all that, and slowly the city grew, and from old city it became new city. But if you have been to Bhopal, you are always aware of this lake. So a lot of roads, the lakes are not hidden, they are all part of the city life, and you drive along that, which is a nice thing. So you are always aware of the presence. And Korea's Bharat Bhavan again sits next to the lake. So always while driving through, you are searching for where Bharat Bhavan is and all that. So our site is about 20 kilometers from the airport. There are a lot of historical references, and there's this place called Gohar Mahal, which we went and saw. And we went during this hot summer, almost like 40 to 45 degrees outside. And luckily we went with a client, and when we went inside, it was very cool. I mean, it was noticeably almost 5-6 degrees cooler. And you could actually feel the difference. And then we started analyzing the sections. And that was the huge kind of benefit, because clients also experienced that difference. And then they supported us through the whole process of achieving these kind of terraces which overlook the court, allowing the breeze to go through, have a lot of terraces which would sort of, allow you to use, exploit the breeze coming in. So that's what you would see. Typically, you would see a lot of terraces. If you see any of these old Bhopal Havelis, you will see a lot of these terraces happening across. Even the mohallas, maybe similar to Ahmedabad, you have these shaded streets, and So you sort of try to preserve that cool air in those pockets, and then you keep it cool. It's a place series of gateways, so you keep seeing that is similar to what happens in Mysore. You are always aware of these gateways. And the huge thing is that Sanjay Stupa, because the moment you get out on the airport, you will just see those, symbols and those gateways of stupa and all everywhere. You are kind of aware of it. And the way this whole place has aged over, I think from some 200 or 300 BC to now. And these stones look so fresh and so lovely. There are some of these prehistoric caves which are also nearby. And you get this beautiful material. Actually, we just accidentally came across this. We were driving through the city just to find out what kind of material you'll get. And we stopped for a tea and then went across and we saw these kind of slabs lying around. Then we went into that house and asked him, and he happened to be one of these stone suppliers. And he said, I will take you to the quarry. And then we started working with this. And this is actually similar to the Sira stone, what you get, 30 mm thick, even thinner than that, 30 mm slabs you get. And then when you use it as a cobbles, it becomes like a cobblestone. You can use it, they call it farsi. So this is that farsi stone. This is in stupa, so the way it has aged over there. This is what Korea has done, Bharat Bhavan, using the same stone. I don't know, for some reason, local people don't use it. I don't know why. But it has such lovely color and such good aging quality. Just don't understand why they are not using it. There are a lot of these references close by. Mandu, where they are mastered the use of water, storing water, exploiting water, celebrating water. This is that famous Nilakanta Mahadev Mandir, where water sort of comes from the hill, goes into the temple, does that abhishek and goes out and then creates all these patterns as it goes out. This is Maheshwar, what I showed, and the way they played with light with this hammam and the baths in Mandu. So that's the site. Now this corner is about 8.5 acres. This entire length is about 1 kilometer, which is absolutely huge. So coming to terms with this, the scale was a little difficult. There was this kind of a nala which was skirting the site. So we had to leave buffer space along that edge. There was a drop of actually about 8.5 meters. To that scale of 650 it's really not much, but it allows you to sort of take the services, especially the the sewage and all. It allows you to sort of take it down. Actually, there's a road called Kalpana Chawla Road in front of our office, which is about 700 meters. So we were trying to just gauge this length, which takes us about 10 minutes to walk across. But so that's the kind of length. There was this road widening which was happening. The setbacks. We had a meeting with the entire team of Azim Premji Foundation. And they are very, very nice, very enlightened people, very knowledgeable, ready to talk about ideas. And also, we were sitting with about 20-25 of them and asked each one about their views and vision about how the campus should be. And each one came up with some fantastic ideas, and we noted it down. This is with each person's name, not in terms of hierarchy of their position, but everyone spoke. And everyone came up with some wonderful ideas, which we tried to put it together and sort of synthesize the whole thing. One of the things was when this water, which would come only during rainy season, probably maybe about 3 months or 2 months in a year, we would probably direct it through the center of the thing. That's how we started working on it. One of their ideas was, can certain spaces be shared by the community? So one of the things was a playground, and they were first the idea was, can the playground be shared by the entire community? So we started working with that as an idea. So playground close to the outer road, then you have academic block here, residential block here, and members' apartments, which are the teachers' apartments, and the fast track project, which had to be completed within a very short time, within probably years' time. So that had a different kind of requirement. So this was one idea. The second one was there was one small entry here. So can we put a playground here, and then put hostel block here, the academic block here, and the members' apartments here, and you have this kind of that whole street which would unfold through the thing, eventually meet this fast track project, which is again a smaller academic block. So this was like a street which actually we liked it a lot, but they kind of didn't like it. They felt that the apartment should have its own independent entrance, because they will get visitors and there will be a security issue in terms of dealing with that. So eventually this is what happened, where you have apartments here, students hostel here, and academic block here, and still trying to create that unfolding pathway with a fast track on the other side. So we started working on that. These were basically the area statements, how much you have to, the rainfall, which is slightly more than Bangalore. Bangalore is 1,000 millimeters, this is 1,200. So what is this? Okay, this is, this is the way we were kind of diverting the water through the thing, and we're trying to create some pause points across, and eventually we'll collect the water at the end of it, and then place the entire campus around that. We have been lucky to deal with water in some of our projects. This is Karunashreya, what I showed earlier. So we wanted to create that water court in the middle, and this is in Trichy, which is CARE campus. Again, has this large water body in the middle, and the same place gets converted into a large gathering space when you have a function. So just these were initial sketches which were done during Corona time. So this is what the water body is, and this is what is CARE campus. So just to get the idea of the scale, we tend to put what we have already done, we put this to the same scale and just try to get a feel of it. So these were the different sections and the whole path going through the entire site. Lot of small scale sections, and then we're talking about connection with water, like that Maheshwar kind of a section, and you would have these amphitheaters sitting next to the water, and it would be used for so many other things. One of the important decision that we took is we said that we'll start planting these trees across the campus. So this would almost be a 1 kilometer walk. And if you start planting it immediately, you would get an image like this. Now, I showed this image to the clients and said that there must be somebody 100 years back who planted these small saplings here and imagined that it would become like that after 100 years. And that's what each one of us have to do. So if you want to really create a space like this, you can't expect it to happen immediately, but plant today, it will happen after 25 years. Maybe next generation would enjoy it. So started with that as a main axis across, which also becomes a path for fire tender movement. And as you know, fire tender, nowadays you can create this base with those pavers where what you see is only grass. You don't see those pavers. So it would be like a grass pedestrian pathway. In the case of emergency, in the case of fire or ambulance, it would be used for that. Actually, we have created that waterway, what I showed, next to this path. So this water will be there only maybe for a very short time. Rest of the year, it might look like this. But a beautiful thing about these pebbles is it reminds you of water. So even if there is no water, you would still imagine water to be there. So we would create these swales along that path. The way the circulation would happen, vehicular movement, the visitors which would stay outside the campus. When it comes to large events, some function happening, extra cars would come. That time you would use this. Or when there is admission, a lot of parents come with their vehicles, so during that time. That's the entry to the hostel. The vehicular movement on the periphery, the pedestrian movement through the middle, as well as the emergency vehicles. We sort of looked at the temperature across the thing. It is 3 months it is hotter than Bangalore, and that time it gets hot because it goes to about 40 to 45 degrees. But luckily it happens in April, May, June kind of thing. And that is a holiday time for the college. So we really don't have to deal with that extreme temperature, but still we would work without air conditioning the campus. So orientation became important, all north-south orientation. The western walls became more blank, western and to some extent, so that's the buffer. So these were examples of how to protect it from shading. So we did this sun path diagram kind of a thing to track it from morning to evening. So you see the time there, 8 a.m. in the morning, and then how the entire shade sort of goes through from morning to evening. And actually I always walk during the afternoon after lunch, and always found that the northeast side of the building is always has a shade. So we were trying to sort of create these northeast shade, so when they walk during that real hot time, they would get that shade happening. The wind is predominantly from the western side, so we were trying to, by default, we got this, that because we oriented north-south, we got this wind coming from the western side as wind tunnels. We started with a module of a classroom, which we have done it in several projects. Classroom with a courtyards on either side. But here they were very sensitive to the sound transmission, acoustics, and things like that. There's a video I had seen which said that architects don't design through ears, they only design through eyes. So we are never sensitive to how the sound comes. But in a classroom, if a person sitting on the last bench can hear a crisp sound of clear quality, he or she won't sleep, So it's important to have that quality. So we worked with a lot of acoustical engineers, a lot of input came from there. So that's the first module which we took. Using these stone slabs, as I said, we created a lot of options, how we can use these stones, whether we can use it as a fin, use it as Bharat Bhavan kind of a situation, or use it as these chapdis, create nice shade. So this is, so we had to really work against time, and this fast track had to be over in a very short time, within a span of about 1 year. So the whole team really stressed in terms of, working. So we used this stone. So that's Shweta there. So she's the one, and Lakshmi is here, I think. Lakshmi and Venkat both are here. So this is what the first, it's still not occupied, it's still getting done, but you can feel the space. And this is the module which we would use it on a larger scale. So the way light comes in, these are the classrooms below. You get interesting volumes. We are trying to use stone with different textures. The one which are used next to the openings have machine cut kind of a thing, and you get wonderful light coming in. So even sitting in the office, the furniture has just started coming in. Okay, so that's the module what I'm talking about. So we started with that, and luckily we have it built now, and the tenders are all floated for the next one. but we are confident, or more than us, the clients are confident that they know what they are going to get, whether it is good or bad, but they won't get too many surprises probably. So we started working with that module, started modifying that module, different ways. Then the library came as a center because they want the library to be open even during the night. And then there are boys, girls staying there, and then if they want to walk across a long distance, we wanted to minimize that. And we have some of the bridges from the podium at the second floor, where from the hostel you can go directly into the library. So library became like a soul of the whole project, the actual hub. And then you have this large water body next to the library, goes through. These are all seminar halls and, the more of a crowd gathering kind of places, auditorium, seminar halls, workshops, etc. We created this main axis. I'll just come to the rotunda at the end, but that is the entry point. We've created this axis, and then we wanted some flowering trees like in Bangalore you get tabubias, during certain months that entire Kaban Park becomes pink flower, at least some of the roads, and you remember that as a element. Now in Bhopal you can't get tabubias, they won't do well, but there are equivalent trees which we managed. Kanan has managed to locate some of them which we would plant them around. So they will flower probably only during 2 months, but when you go back and look back after 25 years, you will remember that those trees. So this is what we are imagining it to be. Then you come in, and then it's like a huge gateway which opens and creates an entry for you. So there's a small gap actually through which you see the axis going across. Actually it's a larger gap, but from entry point we intentionally wanted to see only about a meter or a meter and a half kind of a thing, where you see that extension. These are some of the elements from stupa. Again, there are these edicts of Ashoka, and right from Pali language to Sanskrit to various languages, you will have these quotes which would be put on the thing. And then you have references from Sanchi. We have these gateways, so that became a gateway. So you have one axis which goes towards this, another axis goes towards the library. And we found this nice statement that the person who looks outward dreams, the person who looks inward awakens. And we wanted to have that both these things. So this is about climbing up, reaching high goals. So this path goes up as you enter into the entrance lobby. So you see this one axis which climbs up to the podium of the hostel, and which is almost symbolic of this stupa. And then there is another axis which goes towards the library, and this is looking inwards. It's more meditative kind of a space, but this is the stupa diameter, and this is connecting 4 cardinal points and symbolically trying to sort of anchor it into a center. And it seems somebody had asked Louis Kahn, why didn't you plaster Ahmedabad, IIM? And he said, education is an incomplete process. And I wanted to symbolize that incompleteness in architecture as well. And it's an incomplete process. In this case, in a different way, we wanted to make it complete by completing that circle. So you have this semicircle which get reflected in the water and becomes a complete circle, and symbolically you are trying to give the same message across with one crystal in the middle. So there is a spine which sort of connects this, and this is like a series of gateways which happens from the point where you can park and then go across. And this again symbolizes these different gateways. And then we created these different, almost like lanterns, almost like, meeting points. So you tell your friend, you meet under that atrium kind of thing. So to take it forward, I mean, this is something which we found later. This institute is for creating teachers. I mean, the whole idea of Mr. Premji is to create good teachers from the rural areas so that the transition or that whatever the people who move from villages to the city in want of a good education, that would stop, and you create sort of good centers of learning across the rural areas. So idea is to create great teachers in this place. So we use this guru word so easily for everything. But there are these 6 steps, it seems, that the teacher who gives you information is called adhyapak. The one who imparts knowledge and combines it with information is called upadhyay. The one who imparts skills is called acharya. The one who is able to give deep insight into the subject is called pandit. The one who has a visionary view on the subject and teaches you to think in the manner is called drishta. And the one who is able to awaken your wisdom to you, leading you from darkness to light, is called guru. I mean, this was amazing. So we said, I mean, it's fun to sort of, where is it? Yeah. It's fun to name each of this with the whole progression. So you come in here, you are in the open court. So that starts with the adhyapak court, then it goes to upadhyay court and goes on. And also this is where the skills are imparted. So this atrium will have more kind of a skilled detailing which would happen. This is about the deep insight. So you go and discover this space and come into this library court. So it's a feeling of discovery. This is about the vision, what I showed about, discovering that vision of climbing up and going into this. And then here, last, you go from darkness to light. So this would be a slightly darker atrium, whereas this is under the trees as a larger thing. So this is like a symbolic, progression. And again, the sections. Here, Lakshmikant has done this wonderful study of light from morning to evening, how it would move. And then there are series of sections showing you the quality of light which is happening at different levels, which happens across the entire campus. So these would be with stone, and you have already seen that fast track, so it would look similar to that. But different volumes, different movements, different detailing. We looked at a people movement. Normally in 1 minute to 1.5, very leisurely you can walk 100 meters. So within 3 meters you can go from one end to another, right up to the center of the building. The way, I don't know whether you can see those dots, but it really shows the occupancy. In the morning, 6 to 7 a.m., lot of students will be sleeping in their room. Some of them might be playing some games in the morning, health conscious people. Some of them might be sitting next to the water playing flute or something. Then they will come down at about 8 o'clock for the breakfast. So this will get populated. Then by the time 9 o'clock they are into their classroom, so this gets populated. During lunchtime they are all into this spine. Then in the evening they will start gathering around this library area, along this kund in the middle. They will start getting into these different courts where different playthings are. And in the night they are all playing under the floodlights, different games. So these are some of our projects where how the transformation happens from, the same space starts getting used in a different way when people occupy it. And we wanted that to happen. Now this is a conference center, and if a Nobel laureate or somebody like Mr. Premji comes, there will be large gathering of students. So whatever happening inside the seminar hall will be projected outside, and sitting in the dining hall of the hostel, you can watch the same thing happening. So this was one more thing. So these are the open to sky terraces, what I talked about, and we created those all across. So whether you are on the hostel or in the academic block, you can walk on the second floor and everything gets connected. It's almost like an elevated ground level, which would have even the plants at the second floor level. And there will be a lot of these informal classrooms happening here, even on that second floor. Some studies of facade. This is the last thing about the rotunda. So clues from the principles of stupa, and we sort of literally took the dimensions. We sort of took whatever the major drawings and the cardinal points. But though there is a spiritual kind of content to it, we didn't want to connect it with spirituality. It is more about the feel of entering into education place, and then you respond to the cardinal points. And the way the section also looks like is that these enclosures of that gateway, and then the same thing is kind of reflected as a layer. The gate, that the famous gateway of that stupa, what you see, we took it as a punched through kind of a thing. So you have the normal stone, then you have a polished stone with a very sharp edge, and through the reference of the past, you are actually, with the technology of the present, you are looking at a future, and that you are doing it in all kind of cardinal directions. So you move through that. So if you see, that's the stupa thing, it sort of gets reflected there as a very polished, sharp edge, and you go through it, and the idea of the foundation of sort of incorporating or sort of bringing common people into the thing. So it's quite a large space where some of these festivities and all could happen into that space, and which will be open to the public. So that's how it looks like. So that's what the thing is. This is Mindspace. This is what happened yesterday in our office. So everyone works hard but have fun. And during lunchtime, this is what they do. I didn't know about it. So that's it. It's a lot of fun doing architecture. Thank you so much.
If anyone has any questions to ask, this is the time. Anybody? Someone raised their hand there. No questions? Speechless, huh?
Speechless or confused or...
Yeah, there's one.
Hi.
Hey.
Hi. So this is Tavan, and my question is, like, we all know that you deal with a really good sections, like in terms of designs, and all we see is like there is a lot of changes in the plates and plates of the floors, in the sense like in sections also, like there are levels, you play with levels. So my main thing is, like, on one hand there is something called, we have to deal with even the people, like people who are handicapped, and on the other hand we want to create such spaces. So how do you deal with, like, when on one hand you have levels and on the other hand you have other constraints, and like also a norm that we have to cater those spaces for people who are like for the handicaps?
Yeah. I mean, now, now as I said, when you start designing, this is one of the layers we have to be aware of.
Yeah.
And we have to be aware of right from the beginning. So, which we never did 10 years back maybe. So in every project we have to do that, which we keep taking care of. So you end up having a lot of ramps at many places, but there will be a lot of lifts also at few places. But yeah, you have to respond to that. There is so you work it out in such a way that there's always one more route to go with a wheelchair. It's not necessary that's a secondary route. That could also be a primary route, but that doesn't mean that I always feel that staircases or the stairways is one of the greatest blessings to architecture. I mean, you can really do so much with one thing. It allows you to change your eye level. And the moment you change eye level and see the complete scenario changing, that's probably the most beautiful thing about architecture to sort of experience. So, so it's important to have that. So when you sort of deal with this other aspect, you should be able to achieve it without compromising that architectural quality. And hopefully there will be a wheelchair which will start climbing the staircase. So we don't have to worry about it. Yeah. We have used two types. One is like what is used in Bharat Bhavan, which is, they call it alanga. Sorry. Yeah. In a local term, they call it alanga stone, like what we have, the grey size stone. But as I said, very few people have been using that stone for some unknown reason. So we had to take people from Bangalore to do that masonry. So that's a bit of a challenge, and it's taking a lot of time to do that. So what we have decided is the lower areas where, so clients are getting a little impatient about that, the time taken. So the farsi is something where you bolt it through and you put a sleeve behind to create that air gap of about 30 to 50 mm. And these bolts are actually visible, which creates a pattern. So we have used two different types. One is off the quarry, which is called farsi. Another one is machine cut. So that is used as a combination, and then you have some of the jalis and also. So you used it and then we have used it few places as a cobblestone flooring. And so there's a series of them, but now there is a pressure on us to reduce that alanga and use more of farsi, because that's much more faster and cheaper. Actually, that stone is very cheap, at least till now. You get it, in the quarry you get it some 30-40 rupees a square foot. By the time it comes, it's more, but as a raw material, it's a very, very inexpensive material.
Anybody else?
Hello, sir. Thank you so much for the presentation. It was lovely, as always, to watch you speak about your work. So I have a question. It's a non-technical one, and I think a lot of young architects would sort of relate with this. You yourself have had a very long career at CNT. You worked there for
very long.
Very, very long. Yeah. I'm sure that there is a lot to learn when you work in a firm like that, and you worked there for decades before you started your own practice. And I'm sure that teaches you a lot, but I just wanted to understand your thoughts on sort of getting out of college and maybe working in a place for a couple of years and then sort of starting out and learning from your own mistakes. And what do you think that sort of a trajectory would be versus, really refining yourself as an architect under the guidance of somebody who's done that for so long and then sort of venturing out?
Actually, it's quite an important question. I was reading that Korea's article about Ekalavya. I don't know, most of you would have read it, and he actually analyzes it in a very nice way. He says that and Corbusier or any great masters right from Michelangelo to Leonardo da Vinci, they all worked under a guru. They didn't question guru to a point, and then they totally followed. And then after a point they came out of it and they started doing some amazing work. So he says both things are extremely important. But so he says one guru studio and one analytical studio. I don't know what he exactly calls it, but the other studio is about where you question your teacher. Whatever he says, you question. And there is another studio where you just follow. And I think both the things are equally important. Somebody whom you respect from your heart, you follow till you gain that confidence, because there is a lot of learning. That guru would have gone through a lot of mistakes and learned the things. So take it on and then go forward and then, surpass guru, probably. That would be a nice thing. So problem in today's generation is there's no patience. And that idea of pause, idea of, doing things slowly, because just we were talking, all these videos are becoming now 1 minute and half a minute. Even if it goes to 2 minutes, it is too long, So this whole idea of, I don't know how you sat through this long lecture, but but there's absolutely no patience. You want results, just immediately. So it's important to have that patience, because whatever you are going to do, it has to last for, maybe in earlier days it used to last for centuries. Maybe now with different materials it might last much less, but still it would last at least 50 years, I think. So, if you are going to make difference to the next generation, you have to have that patience to learn to build.
Thank you everybody for having shown up in such wonderful numbers for this first event of season 2. Definitely meet you next month again with, as usual, one more interesting speaker. Good night.